What's up, humans, and welcome to a new Psicoactivo. Happy Friday, everybody. Today's episode is going to be an interview that I've been trying to get to happen for a little while now. I first caught a glimpse of these two gentlemen that I'm going to interview today on Ross Coulthardt's reality check. And I saw the work that they were doing. They were compiling UAP data with some really sophisticated sensors that I want to know more about. And it's a pleasure for me to welcome both John and Gerry Tedesco to the show. Welcome, gentlemen. How are you?
Hello,
good,
Pavel.
Good.
Glad to be here.
Doing good, Pavel.
Nice to have you here. So let's start with, I guess, when I first saw you guys, I saw that you were showing some videos to Ross Coulthard when the drones in New Jersey were like at their peak. Yeah. So what was that experience like for you guys? And where did you start recording these objects in the sky when that was happening? Because I know you've been doing this for way longer than that, right?
Yes. I think the first time we actually encountered something that we believe were drones or drone-like started back in actually November of 2022. And we saw these objects that presented themselves over the Atlantic Ocean, where we were doing some research down at Rob Moses State Park. Lasted for about 3 weeks, and there seemed to be quite a few objects out in the air, and up to that point in time, we were actually looking at other objects that were orb-like, and they had much more of an anomalous pattern to them, very difficult to see, not visible most of the time. You needed night vision equipment in order to see them. And that lasted, again, about 3 weeks. And then we saw it again back in 23. And then finally in 24, we saw the same pattern emerge. And we're not quite sure whether or not they were, in fact, drones, all of them. There was, I think, the public kind of interchanged various different observations, whether or not they were drones or they were, these orb-like objects that we've been seeing for some time now. But they've been out there. They've been presenting themselves on a somewhat regular basis, and we've been seeing them here over our local airports. No, of course, over pretty much the whole eastern coast, there's been quite a bit of activity, especially in, of course, New Jersey, Connecticut, and Staten Island.
Yeah, we know the Jersey drone flap started in at least the recent flap started in November of 2024, as everybody knows. We didn't go out until December. It was mid-December or late December. Actually, we went out. As the reports were compiling, and especially to Jersey, we were getting actually feedback from other researchers that were out there. The public was sending us emails and texts and things like that. So we took our Nightcrawler, or mobile laboratory, out in late December. We went out to the coast. We actually saw some of these objects inland that would hover over the highway, over some of the highways there for long periods of time, and we saw them off the shoreline. But these were different from the orb-like objects we were seeing originally. These were more visible. They had tended to have a flashing light off the periphery or off a central light. They looked drone. They look like drone or drone-like. We call them drone-like because we weren't exactly certain what they are, but they definitely didn't fit the prosaic air traffic that we normally encounter,
right, or the normal pattern of drones that people would typically see.
Yeah, are you more certain now of what they are? Are you more certain now?
No,
we're still not sure what they are, but the only thing we can ascertain is they were drone-like. We did pick them intermittently on radar. Not all the time. We did pick them up on our hyperspectral equipment. That was pretty easy. But the flight patterns are very strange. They would loiter for long periods of time. One object we saw loitered for at least an hour before it finally moved.
Right. And then there were other times we just had unusual signatures. You know, depending on what kind of equipment we were using. If we were using long wave thermal, like FLIR type of equipment, thermal cameras, sometimes you'd see some kind of presentation. Other times you wouldn't see anything at all. And with a thermal camera, it's very difficult not to be able to see them at the distances that we were observing these objects. There should have been some kind of a structure, some kind of an outline that you know, even subtle temperature changes, like a fraction of a degree, you should be able to see that, especially with the kind of camera systems that we have. And we weren't able to make that out.
Yeah, and that's unusual. So,
Yeah, very unusual.
And is it safe to say that nobody knows where these actually come from and where they go after they stay there for a while?
That's still a mystery. Even there were several sheriff's departments that had drone units that were set up. There was Ocean County in New Jersey. There was Monmouth County in New Jersey. The state police had a drone unit. They were launching. They had their own industrial UAVs that they had launched to approach these objects when they were out, and they were reporting unusual features of the objects. They were large, difficult to get a thermal signature on them, and some of the like the Ocean County mobile drone unit, they actually had a industrial UAV with a FLIR camera on it and a standard camera on it, and they couldn't really get anything on thermal from what we understand, but they did get a video clip of an object that was pretty unusual.
Yeah, the lighting pattern was definitely unusual.
Yeah,
but they've also had a sheriff's deputy that was out near the coast, and she had tracked quite a few objects coming in from the sea. So that's quite unusual, and as well as a Coast Guard unit out there, Coast Guard vessel, also tracked quite a few objects. I'm not quite sure the actual numbers, but
I think it was like something. I think it was around 13.
13 from the Coast Guard. Yeah,
that actually trailed the Coast Guard vessel.
What is your take on how the government has been handling this drone issue? Because I know that they said that they would tell the people what these were, and then they were like, nothing to see here. What is your take from your perspective, how this has been handled?
We thought the response was pretty poor.
Yeah, it's extremely unusual. I mean, it's if these things, if they were aware of them, if certainly if the FAA was aware of them, they a lot more would have been said, before all this all took place, and to to hear some of the surprising responses, even from the FAA, it's very, very unusual.
Yeah, the other thing is nothing was coordinated. I mean, if the FAA was aware of these objects, or they were doing their own research project out there,
right?
Why wasn't anybody else alerted? None of the law enforcement was alerted. They all complained. The sheriff of Monmouth County, he fired back. The FBI was angry because they wasted a lot of man hours trying to track these things, and we had 3 agencies from FBI to Homeland Security to I think the Customs and Border Patrol that said they had no idea what these were.
Right. And originally, I think the FAA claimed the same, is that they weren't sure what they are. And then, to be boiled down to basically some kind of a research program, and nothing being stated by the FAA or direct commented by the FAA. It's very unusual.
It doesn't make a lot of sense.
No.
Yeah. And simultaneously, though, because you guys have been spotting these and tracking these for a while, what do you think the orb types are? Because there's been a lot, even there's a paper that's very recent that talks about plasmoids. What do you think these are, if you could explain to the people?
Well, the interesting thing is the kind of data we're getting is very similar to, I guess, what the Headstone project in Norway is seeing, and there's other researchers. There's a researcher in Australia that's seeing similar things, and they have different names depending on where you are in the world. In Australia, it's called the Min Lights. In Norway, it's called the Headstone Lights. I mean, here you got the Brown Mountain Lights. I mean, you got the of course the Phoenix Lights, and there's a bunch of other names for them. But I think it goes back probably maybe a few hundred years. I don't know, but there was been reports. Seeing these lights have been reported for a long time. We just figured out a way actually observe them.
Right, and the science community, I think it's more of known as a nocturnal light phenomena. That we have quite a few questions about. As far as being a plasma or a state of plasma, we're not really sure about that. There is some interesting visible components to it, visible light components, but also there are times that they seem to be able to change their spectral signatures. Where it goes from visible light to infrared and possibly ultraviolet as well.
The other thing is, I should say, we have done some work out there with. We use what's called UVC sensors, UVC detectors, and these several times we had these UVC detectors triggered by some of these objects in close proximity to where we're on the shoreline. And typically, when you get UVC detection, that's an indication that you're dealing with either some kind of coronal discharge, some kind of electrical arc, or you're emitting some kind of strong static discharge, or it's some kind of plasma.
Right. And this is a very specific wavelength that this piece of instrumentation is looking at. It's by the numbers, it's anywhere between 194 to about 240 nanometers. So it's very specific to UVC part of the scale, the light scale, and something like that. As Gerry said, it's either a coronal discharge, an electrical arc of some sort, or some kind of a plasma state that's producing it.
I mean, it's something that what exactly it is a difficult question, because whether it's maybe if it's some kind of craft that emits some kind of plasma sheath, I mean, that could be the case. It could be just a plasma itself, some part of nature we don't understand.
Mm-hmm.
What is your take on what Skywatcher is doing? Because presumably you guys are doing similar work. And when I saw comments about their work, I kept seeing your name brought up in the comments that people should take a look at what you guys are doing. And I do agree. So what is your take on what they're doing? Because people have their own questions about their intent and everything. So what is your take?
Here's the interesting thing is, I mean, they're talking about, they started their project within 3 to 4 years ago. That's a time period when we actually started publishing on this, and our name never comes up, and we don't mind, other people following up on our research, and we would be happy to collaborate. But the fact is, our name never comes up. We're not acknowledged as gaining, and we actually published this data already.
Yeah,
and for somebody, for another group to come in and claim, that this is claiming they've taken a stake that this is a first or it's unprecedented, that's not true.
Right. I mean, nobody from the group has actually reached out.
Yeah, we haven't heard from them. So,
but some of the things that they describe is very much what we've been seeing, what we've been recording our data out in the field. I'd like to see a little bit more in the way of instrumented data. We're transparent on that. Anybody wants to see our equipment, we published a book about it. Everything is published in the book. There's no surprises. There's nothing hidden as far as how we're going about the research. So that's something that I think they should really maybe step forward with that and just really talk about some of that instrumented data that they've been gathering.
And the data needs more layers than what they're putting out there. I mean, so far the objects or the videos they're putting out, it's somewhat interesting, but without other data points, I mean,
right. We would like to see a lot more.
I mean, you can actually write them off. I mean, everything from loose bird flocks to mylar balloons and solar balloons to even a weather balloon. In one case, even a jellyfish. I mean, my first thought was when I looked at it, it could be a weather balloon. If you have a piece of equipment that's hanging from the balloon itself, you want it a distance away from the balloon.
Right.
So I don't see anything that clarifies, that makes that certain that it's something else, that it's something unusual.
Right. And of course, unless that can be backed up by instrumented data, radar information. And so,
and we haven't seen any of that other data.
So that's the kind of stuff that's important to us,
or at least I haven't talked about it.
Maybe the only guy that I've seen praising your work has been Jake Barber, because he has. I've seen some comments from him that are
Right. We'd
positive
love to hear
towards
from
you
him.
guys.
We'd love to hear.
Yeah, I
from him.
mean, yeah, we haven't heard from him, so
Yeah.
so we're in a vacuum.
Yeah. But we
Yeah.
would like to hear from him, and maybe they need another team out there to to collaborate the data that they have.
Well, I mean, that's kind of a running problem when we talk about that. It's nobody knows what everybody else is doing. Or they don't acknowledge what everybody else is doing. So there's no constructive collaboration. So the data never gets shared, and it never establishes itself as a baseline.
Right.
Do you think there might be a stonewalling kind of going on because of government involvement in some way?
I mean, it's possible. It's possible. I mean, that's certainly with some folks there having certain high security clearances, that sort of thing.
Well, the people in the people in the intelligence community, or the maybe some people who worked at the Pentagon or whatever.
Right. I mean, that may play a role. We're not sure, but again, this is not just with Skywatcher. I mean, this is pretty much. It's across the board, and concerns academia and other professional organizations and so on and so forth.
I see. So there's a level of competition there, maybe going on.
It seems to be, and there shouldn't.
Yeah,
there shouldn't be.
There shouldn't be with something like this. There really shouldn't be. I mean, we're open source with what we have, and we'd like others to, basically be forthcoming, with us and of course the public.
So, what do you think about the psionic aspect of it, and about the dog whistle that is being talked about? Do you guys have any type of other equipment that maybe can be considered some sort of a dog whistle, or how do you record them?
Yes, I mean, go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, I mean, when we were out there, I mean, we've had our own encounters with these objects, and they seem to send around occur when we're actively using radar or some of our sensor equipment.
Okay,
they're transmitting out there, and it seems to be some kind of affinity for it, or some kind of electromagnetic migration in some cases where we see these objects. They seem to pop in and out around where we are.
Right.
Especially when we're using equipment.
Yeah.
The other thing is, I mean, we've had our own share of bizarre encounters with these objects. They seem to show some kind of awareness or intelligence. I mean, so that aspect of it seems to be correlated with what they're talking about with the psionic efforts.
Are you guys twins?
Yes. Yes.
That has a huge connection to that, because twins have a unique telepathic communication since they're little, and I guess you guys have the same type of connection. So it doesn't surprise me to hear you talking about some of these anomalous things that have happened. Is there any specific kind of experience you may want to share with the public that shocked you in any way?
You want to share that one, John?
Yes, as a matter of fact, there is. Early on in our research, we had started back in July of 2022. In August 28th to be exact, we had an experience down there. This was shortly after 12 midnight, and we had noticed there was a formation over the Atlantic Ocean, off the coast, that we saw on our central monitor inside the mobile laboratory. It was a triangular pattern of lights. We weren't quite sure what that was. When we went outside the RV to look at the object visibly, there was no visible appearance. There was no visible light coming back. We noticed that it was only in the infrared. So Gerry and I had gone down to the shoreline at that point, bringing with us a couple of night vision cameras, and we tried to flag it. We tried to signal this object, and then we had an IR emitter, a long range emitter that we were trying to bounce some light, or we get some reflectivity off the objects themselves, because we believe they weren't that far out there, somewhere within about maybe 1,500 or 1,600 feet from where we were standing.
Okay.
We did get reflections back once we hit it with IR emission, and we noticed after the seventh time of basically lighting this object up, we had a movement, a sudden movement of what appeared to be some kind of a geometric pattern, a polyhedral pattern of light. Um, what I saw in my camera, it was basically something that looked like a rectangular reflection of light that quickly moved up to the shoreline from that distance within about 3 seconds. And the cameras at that point were completely overloaded. The luminosity from this object basically overloaded the cameras themselves. And when I pulled the camera from my eyes, I couldn't see it visibly. It was just in the infrared.
Whoa, that's wild.
Yeah, so it was a little nerve wracking. And I said to my brother, I said, let's get away from the shoreline. I have no idea what this is. It's we're literally on top of us.
And as John said, that here's a high resolution IR camera. Mine's a little bit lower resolution. Mine picked up this object as it was approaching the shoreline, or at least a reflection of it underwater. We saw this oval shaped bluish light. It was either under the surface of the water, or it was
just above,
maybe above, shining down from above our heads. But it was completely invisible. But both our cameras picked this up as it rapidly approached the shoreline. And like John said, it overwhelmed the cameras. We had electromagnetic interference with both cameras.
The cameras were intermittent. They were recording intermittently. They were showing some very odd behaviors. Settings were changed in the camera. They were altered, especially in the memory settings of the camera and the macros. The macros were changed. And at that moment when it came into shore, as I turned to move away from the water, my legs basically gave out on me. I had no control of my lower extremities, and at that point I fell to the sand, and I couldn't coordinate myself. I couldn't coordinate my legs to basically pull them under me to pull myself back up. And my brother noticed this, and he had reached down to try to pull me up at that point, and he had collapsed on the sand as well. Now, this form of, I guess, some kind of a flaccid paralysis lasted about 45 seconds.
Yeah,
and
like I said, mine followed John's within seconds. It followed, and the same thing. The same symptoms. There was no muscle tone. There was no muscle strength below the waist.
Do you think that you guys being twins may have had something to do with that?
It's possible.
I mean, it's a possibility, but it's interesting because we definitely had physical, biological effects from whatever this was that seemed to approach the shoreline.
Right. And it's again, it was very, very targeted. It's didn't experience any other issues but coordination below the waist. So, we couldn't move. We couldn't move any, or do anything for 45 seconds. And we felt like, maybe this was some kind of a threat assessment, And once we recovered, 45 seconds later, we did make our way back to the RV. Now, these physical issues lasted roughly between 24 and 48 hours after the incident. That we had other symptoms. We had swollen lymph nodes. For me, it was under my armpits, and a deep sense of fatigue for 24 hours. And Jerry experienced something very similar, but I think in his case it was in his neck.
It was tender lymph nodes in my neck and fatigue.
Wow. Because there's been a lot of talk about DEWs, which is directed energy weapons. And it happens to people who get into these types of investigations. So it is also possible that you guys may have been hit with something like that. My question, I guess, is because I know that there are some type of mines in the Jersey area. Were you guys over there in that area?
No, we didn't make it out there. We did collaborate with other groups that were out there that did some research, and we saw some of their findings. But we had a lot of activity here on the island as well.
It was the same kind of activity, right? And this during that Jersey incident. It was all throughout the Northeast, and then it was spreading throughout most of the United States.
Right, and for us, it was Kabreski Airport that we were investigating at that time. which had 17 incursions in one night.
Yeah, we actually had 4 airports in New York that were impacted and in some cases shut down for some time.
Okay.
Mhm.
And well, the eternal debate of the nuts and bolts versus the people who think this is related to consciousness. I would like to get your take on that because you guys are more nuts and bolts related. You guys are both engineers, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
So, what do you think about that, these correlations? Because I see more consciousness conversations going up, and the nuts and bolts is being a little bit more ignored these days. What's your take on that?
The interesting thing when we first started, our thought was it probably wasn't a nuts and bolts type thing, some kind of manufactured craft, or maybe it was some kind of atmospheric phenomena. As the longer we went out there, we were out there 4 years now. We saw the bizarre behavior of what we were seeing, and they almost act organic in some ways. And there was evidence of awareness, there was evidence of intelligence. So we actually kind of drifted to an uncertainty that there's definitely a big aspect of this that seems to be something.
More of the woo and that's
Yeah, non-physical, something
yeah,
non-physical.
Yeah.
And what's your feeling on that?
I think it may be a combination of things. With these orbs, we have enough observations of them that we know that they change their luminosity. We had some that actually hovered off the shoreline, and they rotate. They rotate at different frequencies. And the faster they rotate, they seem to increase their luminosity. And as they decrease their rotation, the luminosity decreases. And when the luminosity decreases, we do see some kind of structure underneath. It looks like some kind of polyhedral structure. Now, I don't know if that's something mechanical, or if it's some kind of bizarre, organic.
Right. And there does seem to be some kind of sphere around it, which is basically encapsulating this polyhedral structure. Now, I know some of the pilots have described over the East Coast, Brian Grace in particular, that what they were observing was a cube within a sphere. Very much like that. I don't know if we describe it as a cube, but definitely some kind of polyhedral structure in there.
The interesting thing is, if you got a polyhedron, and if it stays in one position, there are sides of it that could look like it's cube. It looks cube-like. As it's rotating, it's more. The more sides it has, the more spherical it looks. And if there's some kind of envelope around of some kind of propulsion system, or some kind of force, that's creating around it, you could definitely get that more of that spherical shape.
Right.
And of course, it would look like a cube. But some of the objects we saw, they did look like rotating cubes.
Right. And in a less luminous state, especially if you're using infrared, using night vision systems, you don't get to see the sphere very clearly. You definitely see a structure in there, a rotating structure that seems to have has a geometric pattern to it. Sometimes it rotates randomly with at least one reflective surface to it. Other times it's very synchronized, and where you're seeing this reflection, which is facing the observer, and then you'll see this rotation go from horizontal to vertical. So it's a very synchronized rotation at times.
And then there's other times that it gives off a chromatic display.
Yes.
There's different colors.
Yeah, you'll see that in the visible light with our low-level cameras, low-level light cameras. And that chromatic display is kind of unique because it seems to undergo blue and red shifting, which may indicate something else, may indicate some kind of a gravitational lensing of some sort, which could be a propulsion system of some type, and this is the kind of thing we're seeing, very similar effects with radar returns. We have interference, weird propagations of the reflected signal. Sometimes they come back late. Sometimes they come back early. Sometimes the reflection is unusual, produces a very complicated interference pattern, almost like blocking or scrambling.
I don't know if you guys have noticed, but when this whole started in 2017, if you guys have been following up on this,
Mhm.
I see that people that are involved that said, no, it's impossible that the US or these aerospace companies have this kind of technology. And then now they seem to be moving towards the opposite, that they think that there may be something, and it's somehow related to whatever China has been discovering lately.
Mhm.
Do you guys think that the US has this technology, or some kind of new propulsion that they discovered, or do you think it's
That's
possible?
I mean, that's the big mystery. I mean, I think it's a possibility there
Sure. I mean,
because
I mean, whether or not it's new technology or reverse engineered technology, who knows? But I would say it's an advanced technology, not typically of what you see with prosaic aircraft.
it would have to be very advanced.
Very advanced.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think there may be a possibility that this advanced technology might be ancient in any sense of the word?
We've considered that too. I mean, there's the three hypotheses that are on the table: extraterrestrial, ultra terrestrial, or crypto terrestrial. Um, the way we look at it is it could definitely be something that's here, say crypto terrestrial, something that's hidden. And the fact that we notice that they can change their spectral wavelengths, that so they can become invisible or drift into a range that's invisible to human senses. That's the crypto terrestrial aspect of. So it could have been something that's been here that has a great ability to hide
Mm-hmm.
from our. We have very limited sensory range. It's like less
Yeah.
than 1% of the entire electromagnetic spectrum, and we're looking at most of the electromagnetic spectrum. So we're seeing these objects actually drift into the infrared in different ranges, sometimes a little bit into the UV, as far
Right.
as we can measure.
Yeah, it's like opening a window. I mean, it's the multispectral, hyperspectral camera systems that we have, and our detectors alone has revealed a lot more information, a lot more data.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Than what we're seeing with our primary senses.
The other thing is the ultra terrestrial hypothesis has just as much merit. We judge the world based on 3 dimensions. We live in we believe we live in a 3 dimensional reality. Anything we look at, we'll only see 3 sides of anything.
Yeah.
And that so anything that's 4th dimensional, 5th dimensional, we wouldn't have sensory apparatus to be aware of that, or even know how to. Our sensory system wouldn't be able to negotiate that.
Mhm.
So it's quite possible you could have something that's existing in a higher spatial dimension, and it's casting or projecting itself in a way that we can see it, in a lower dimension.
Right.
Yeah, I'm gonna show you a few images that I got from your pages. That it's with the equipment. What are we looking at here, for example?
Okay, so what you're looking at, that's one of our hyperspectral cameras. Lots of wiring there. You can see it's a very complicated arrangement there. But that particular camera system is it's near infrared, it's shortwave infrared, it's long wave infrared. It also has ultraviolet sensors, A, B, and C. C being the extreme end. They're very sensitive detectors. These are novel detectors that it's using. It's also got a millimeter wave radar system in the front that has a range of roughly about 3 miles within the field of view of the cameras.
Whoa.
Everything's recorded. Everything's multi-viewed. It's in multi-cam views or quad views, and all the data is recorded at one time. So if you're seeing something, let's say it's in the visible, all of a sudden it changes its spectral range, and it's in the infrared, you'll have a side-by-side comparison to that. So you'll be able to
Okay.
see that change.
All right.
And
And what about this?
so that's our research vehicle. That's the RV. That's a C-class mobile home that's been basically converted, upgraded. You can see on the top this Furuno radar systems. You have 2 scanners. One's vertical, the other one's horizontal. They scan in 2 geometries. The horizontal one that says Furuno on it, that scans typically the same way you'd have it on a marine craft.
Okay.
The other one is vertical. That'll scan up to 80,000 feet up into the atmosphere. So we get a great
Whoa.
profile of these objects if they're crossing our path within a 4-mile swath.
The other thing is you
Whoa.
can see we have a PTZ camera, a pan tilt, and a zoom
Right,
camera.
all night vision. All together. There's 8 cameras on the RV. There's 2 PTZs. There's a high gain parabolic antenna, which we have tied into a spectrum analyzer, a 30 gigahertz spectrum analyzer, and of course there's a lot of shortwave and spectral equipment as well. But the RV also has integrated sensors and long-term recording equipment as well.
And you can see us with the equipment on the tripod that was setting up.
Portable,
That's the portable integrated hyperspectral system.
Right. That's a hyperspectral camera. And you'll see on the ground there's actually a radar. There's a portable radar system that we use also, millimeter wave radar.
And this picture is actually taken at Gabretsky Airport on Long Island. It's an area where they had at least 4 days of incursions.
Right. And I think we had News Nation at that time.
And News Nation had interviewed us while we were out there.
You know.
So this is essentially the most state of the line equipment you can use to capture this kind of data, isn't it?
Yes,
Right.
this is state of the art.
Yeah, we're always upgrading too.
And this is the second version of the Nightcrawler. We had 2 versions. One was a bottom up.
Is this another one?
That's
the first one.
right.
All
That's
right.
that's more like a tank.
Yeah, that looks like something.
Yeah, that looks pretty badass if you ask me.
It was a very rugged vehicle. It had everything. Had ballistic walls, anti-ballistic walls for impacts. It had a Faraday cage to block out electromagnetic interference that would affect prevent it from affecting our equipment.
Right, battery issues and that sort of thing. So you had basically a Faraday cage around it.
It had solar panels on the roof on the angled roof.
Yeah, multiple radar systems, and you can see on the back there you have a horizontal scan antenna, an array, and you have a camera system, a PTZ out there as well.
There's also 2 floors, so you can. There was
That's
actually a hatchway that went up to the top floor.
Right.
That's awesome. And you guys still have both of those, or
No,
you no longer have this one?
this one we had to decommission. It was
The cost was extremely high. It was
Yeah.
actually too high for us to maintain.
yeah,
Alright.
the height of it was bridge issues and camera issues, that sort of thing.
Okay. So do you guys have anything to share? If you guys would like to share, so we can see what that looks like using all of the equipment and
Sure.
yeah, that'd be
Right,
really
so-
cool.
Let me grab that.
So let me play this one. This is 35 seconds.
Yes. Now, if you'll notice, we were filming a bluish orb of light that was also changing some of its chromatic displays, and there was another object that was on the water that was following it, and you saw one blinking out.
Right, and this is at Robert Moses State Park on Long Island, New York.
That one is multicolored, isn't it?
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Wow.
It was completely quiet. Made no sound. You see, it's very low in the sky, very low towards the water.
And you'll see this. We have team members. You can see the flashes of blue light there.
Yeah.
What's
Let's do it again.
happening there is they're using a UVC detector, and that detector went off several times, indicating that it was picking up some kind of a UVC energy coming.
And that's indicative of either a plasma or some kind of strong electrical discharge around it.
Exactly.
It's also really low on the near the water. It's
Yes,
not that
It's
high.
very low.
Yeah, we estimate it to be roughly about 300 feet from the surface and about 1,600 feet out.
Wow. Okay, let's go to the next one.
Okay.
Wow, this is awesome. Thank you guys.
Yeah, you're welcome.
You're welcome.
All right, so this one is a magnified view of an object that was transversing our location. Same area, Rob Moses State Park.
And this is facing the Atlantic Ocean.
Right, this is going down one of the paths that cuts down to the beach.
And if you look carefully at this object, you'll notice it's got a polyhedral appearance, almost cube-like. It's rotating.
Yeah, there's a rotating polyhedron.
Wow. And it's also multicolored. As,
Multicolored.
Yep, chromatic display.
Wow. Okay. Let's go to the next one. Oh, this is longer. I like this. All right.
Okay, so this one we actually we tracked an object again down one of the cuts down to the beach, the Robert Moses State Park, and we saw this rotating polyhedron. But this is taken with a night vision camera. It was in the infrared. So what I did is I tried to hit it with a LiDAR, a rangefinder, and I was able to detect that reflection coming back. But the odd fact about it is that the reflection only showed that it was roughly about 46 feet away, which is impossible.
Wow.
Yeah, so you'll see that I'm actually aligning the LiDAR at this point, bouncing it off some signs on a fence, and basically aligning that target. Now I'll move by location. You'll see I stand right in front of the path, so giving a clear line of sight.
So this is John readjusting himself.
Yes, I'm readjusting
and you'll see this object, and you see it looks like the same kind of object we saw earlier, the polyhedral object. And this is very low to the water.
Right, and that beam of light that you see, that's from a LiDAR. That's an infrared beam that's being visualized through the night vision apparatus. You'll see as this object now, as it moves more toward the center, this is when I try to get a range on it, and you'll definitely see the rotation in there, that flickering. Okay, again, I'm realigning the laser, the rangefinder, hitting the water, hitting the beach area, and
it does seem pretty far, that one, doesn't it?
Yes. Now, what's interesting, you'll see there's a polyhedral shape in there, and you'll see that you could see that slight beam, that trail of the infrared beam. And what we got back was a reflection that showed that it was only 46 feet away, which is kind of bizarre.
Yeah, shouldn't be possible.
No, not at all.
All right, can we move on to the next one?
Sure, next one. Yep.
Police officer video.
Yes, this is a police officer video in Suffolk County. He volunteered this video to us. She had given us this video. This is a early morning recording, about 4 in the morning, Joe?
4 in the morning,
of an object that they saw over central Suffolk County, or central Long Island. And again, it's a rotating polyhedron. Looked like it had a chromatic display around it. Just very unusual for them to see that early morning.
And the person actually got out of the vehicle and was so amazed by what they were seeing that they were filming with their cell phone camera. And the person described it as I talked to them in person. They described it as almost like looked like a Christmas ornament or a disco ball rotating.
Yeah.
And with and saying all the colors of the rainbow as it was turning.
Like a kaleidoscope appearance.
All right, let's look at the next one. This one is a triangle.
Yes, that was our incident in August.
Oh, okay.
This is the triangle we had the issue with. So this is basically just after our incident. We had other members. 4 of us went back down, team members. The object was out there for literally 45 minutes, and you'll see a smaller object transversing in front of the triangle. Now that object actually looks like it dipped below the surface of the ocean and then came back out again. And what I was trying to do is I was hitting it with a visible torch it was 90,000 lumen torch, visible light, and we were able to reflect light from that object, so we know it wasn't that far.
Whoa!
And this triangular. There's also an object to the left of the pair. It's a small object, but we believe it's 3 distinct objects, all invisible visibly, but this is all infrared.
Yeah, you can only see it in the infrared.
It was hovering above the ocean. Of course, the smaller object dropped from the sky and then moved left to the left field of view of the camera. And then right now it's in front of the triangle. And it actually, at one point, it approached us. It came closer to us and then backed off.
Yes, and during that motion, it actually dipped under the ocean.
And you see John's shining a torch at as he's lighting it up.
You can see the reflection.
It's reflecting the light back. So it's close.
Yeah. Do you think that this smaller object was kind of interacting with the other 3?
I believe so, yeah.
Because there was more than that. There was maybe 2 or 3 other objects we had noticed around it, orb-like.
Whoa. And this object, the triangle, do you think it might be coming from the ocean up, or how did it appear? The
interesting thing is it was just there. We just happened to notice on monitor it was right in front of our where we were parked, and we were right at the edge of the beach.
Right. And the object was roughly about 300 feet from the surface, the ocean surface. And again, we estimated to be, less than 2,000 feet from where we were standing.
All right.
Like John was saying earlier, I think this object was out for 45 minutes in 35-mile-per-hour wind gusts. It was in a fixed position. It didn't budge.
And this is when you guys had your experience with the
Yes.
where you lost control of your legs.
Yes, exactly.
Wow.
Yep.
Okay.
And
All right, let's move on to the last one if you guys are okay with it.
Yeah, and I just want to mention that we had 4 researchers out there. Nobody could see this, only with night vision equipment.
Okay.
And it was captured on at least 4 cameras.
All right. Whew. This is 2022, right? Yeah, it's right there.
Yes.
August
Right.
28th, 2022.
Nice.
It says
That's my-
27, but it was after 12:30.
that was my brother's birthday, actually. Kind of.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. All right. All right. Let's go to the last one. This one, visit orbs. It says.
I believe this was the November in 2022.
That was the drone incursion, I think. Oh no, this one was different. This was a low luminance orb, again, that had to be seen in you could only visualize it in the night vision cameras. We basically getting our positions set up over there to get a clear field of view. You see there's 2 objects out there, very dull reflection of light.
Yeah.
And there's another one above it flashing.
Yes, yep.
I see 3, right? There are
Yes,
3 of them.
Yeah, there's
Yes.
3.
And you see her they're in a linear angle.
It's really funny how they are multicolored and constantly changing. It's
Yes.
Yeah, we
those are the
believe that-
anomalous ones, right?
Yeah, we may believe that might be some kind of a gravitational lensing effect.
That's interesting.
Yeah, because we're seeing the same kind of distortions with our radar and even using LiDAR. With a LiDAR beam, actually bend LiDAR beam, or we'll get a truncated reflection back. Like John said, it was for 44 feet instead of being more like
46 feet.
Yeah, 46. Yeah.
Which should have been, much further. At least, I would say, at least, at that point, probably 800 feet out.
Yeah, easily.
All right. So thank you guys for sharing this. I really
No problem.
appreciate it. And our viewers also appreciate it so much. They love watching these types of videos. And I guess when Jake Barber said that there were other groups doing this, he also meant you guys. And it's really this part of the conversation that I think is going to be a little more difficult to navigate, because when I got into this, I realized quickly that there was always competition with everything, right? So I'm a journalist, and other journalists and other creators are also competing for the story. And the same thing is happening in your field, that you guys are competing for the data. And I agree with you guys. It shouldn't be a competition. We should all be working together.
Not at all.
Yeah. And I just wanted to ask you about this. The collaboration you had with Galileo Project, and whatever interactions you may have had with the Soul Foundation, or and you already told me that Skywatcher hasn't even reached out to you. What's that experience been like for you?
Well, we started out with the Galileo project, back in what was it, 2021?
Yes, it was
When they were just putting
August of 21.
Yeah, they were just putting their members together, and there were times that we had talked about collaboration. They were going to basically send a satellite system out to us, have their own people there, and try to collaborate basically some of the data that we've been taking. It never materialized. It never got to a point where we got to that point where we could get the members out, principal members. We did have some of the Galileo team out there on an independent basis with us, some of the scientists, but nothing, nothing formal, and that's it was a little discerning to us. I mean, it's we really did expect a little bit more, and unfortunately, I think some folks control, they control the narrative, and you know, it's I think in something like this, that, you know, this kind of research is that you need professionals from all over. It's not just academia. You need engineers, you need technologists, you need technicians, you need other professionals that are involved in this research, and everybody contributes a little bit to the, you know, to the pot, you know, and it's you know, it's unfortunate that that some you know, some groups that don't want to work with us.
And it can't be about egos or
No.
or politics, even in academia, academic politics.
Yeah,
Like I said, it doesn't help. It's not fair to the public. It doesn't help us progress this forward. You know, like I says, we're doing our due diligence, and we are working with the groups that want to work with us. We are collaborating with the Heslin, the scientists from the Heslin project. We are collaborating with a scientist, NGR Scapes Lab, I believe, in Australia. There's other researchers here that we're collaborating with. Other researchers in Canada we're collaborating with. So we're open to that,
as well as federal agencies too. So,
yeah,
you know.
Yeah. And what are you guys doing, like, currently? What are you working on, if you guys can share it to the public?
So we're working on a new system, actually, that we've put together, another portable system. We're moving our locations back and forth around the island. We're looking at an area called Camp Hero out in Montauk Point, Long Island, which has a rich history of this stuff. And we're also looking into we're getting people out there that are a little more psychic sensitive.
Yeah.
And we're trying to manipulate another system that we're using. It's using a 3 gigahertz transmission, modulated, you know, to our voices, modulated to the group. You know, we believe that might have an impact as far as you know, extending that range of communications, and hopefully opening it up to this, you know, kind of like a psionics type approach.
I mean, it's our base. It's our version of the if you're going to call it psionics,
Right.
We're trying to see if those aspects, you know, do prove out if it is something, if there's something legitimate.
Is there any chance you can maybe tell us a little bit of how the mechanism works for that?
It's still in the test phase.
Yeah, it's in the test phase, but, you know, we're using a signal centered around 3 gigahertz.
Mm-hmm.
Now the signal will be modulated. It'll be modulated on either end of this carrier, but it'll be modulated with some information. That information is going to be intelligence. It's going to be human voice. It's going to be the verbal comments, the calls from our group, are, you know, that is going to be out there, and we believe that there's something significant about this 3 gigahertz signal that may make much more of an impact.
We actually had an incident that occurred. We actually had a psychic out there. We actually experimented with this, and we did a controlled experiment out there with this person where they had noise canceling earphones. They were blindfolded. They believed this person was into psychometry, and we knew this we knew this person for a while, and they had experienced these things, seen different things. So she was willing to to run an experiment out there with us.
Right.
And the interesting thing is we also had an anthropologist out there that was observing and monitoring it, that was out there with the subject. And when she was out there, we were filming this, and she became agitated, very agitated out there.
Yeah, aware that something was
going on. So she was fidgeting to a line, and again became agitated because we were getting ready to stand up, and we had a massive discharge of. It looked like IR energy has shut down our PTZ camera
on the RV.
What?
Right.
Whoa.
So there seemed to be a flash and overload, and the camera reset at that point, which is highly unusual. You know, we looked at the the parameters of the camera. We looked at we never had this problem before. Never had an issue with it. This is a first, and it's like I said, it seemed to be a blast of IR energy, intense IR energy that caused the camera to reset. Actually overload the camera at that point.
It was interesting. It almost looked like a lightning strike, but nothing visible.
Nothing visible.
All infrared.
All in the infrared.
Yep. And it was observed, of course, by John and I, of course, monitoring, but of course, the anthropologist that was out there with us, and the psychic. Mm-hmm.
So there is a correlation possibly that you guys having a person with ESP capabilities may have caused that.
That's what we believe. There's definitely a
Whoa.
correlation.
Right. Maybe through that communication that had got this got aroused some kind of activity from this from whatever this is.
So essentially, what we got right now is that you guys are confirming from a second source that there is a correlation there, because we only had, at least from my perspective, I only had the people at Skywatcher saying this, and now we have a second source saying something similar is happening.
Right.
So
I mean, there's
thank
definitely something. There's something to it. There's definitely something to it. We've also had these hitchhiker effects. We've had this phenomena actually follow members of the team, and we actually have some of this documented. Mm-hmm.
Do they experience orbs and stuff like that inside their homes?
Yes.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That's
And
wild.
we actually have a recording from the laboratory, the night vision RV that was parked at my home, and the camera system we were running that night, and we had an object that looked like it was just over the laboratory and shut the street lights down by its intensity. The electricity was fine, but all the street lights shut down because there's a photo cell or photo interrupter on top of these lamps. And if they capture daylight, that sort of thing, they shut the system down, the lamps. And we had this happen with four different street poles.
And the only way to shut these down is you would have whatever would be shining a light. In this case, was infrared energy. It would have to be above those photo interrupters.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, do you want to tell the people where, if they want to get a hold of you or maybe try to collaborate with you, where they can find you the easiest way?
Right. So we have a website. It's called Night Vision. It's all one word. Nightvisioneyonthesky.org.
Nightcrawler.
Night Vision. Nightcrawler. Exactly. I'm sorry. Nightcrawlereyonthesky.org. And we post a lot of the new stuff that we've been seeing, some of the news events, and anything special that we're doing out there. We can also be reached on LinkedIn.
All right.
John Tedesco, Gerald Tedesco, and we will provide, of course, email addresses and so forth for folks that want to get a hold of us individually.
I'm going to leave everything in the description. I want to thank you both for your time and for the work you guys are doing. I think it was important to have a different account of what's happening and of this work of collecting UAP data. So thank you guys for the work you do. And I hope we can talk again sometime soon.
Absolutely.
Right.
We appreciate your interest.
Yes. Thank you, Pavel. Thank you.
Of course. Have a good one, guys. And you guys
too.
know what to do. Like and subscribe and follow the Tedescos. I'm going to leave everything in the description so you guys can follow them and you guys can get in contact with them. Thank you, gentlemen. Have a great day.
Great weekend. Bye-bye now.
All right. Bye.